Thanks for coming on today, Martina. Obviously, we were both at the Women in Green Hydrogen conference last month, well, the workshop in Rotterdam, where we discussed how organisations are supporting women in leadership positions and what the key actions are to ensure women are supported as they progress through their companies. So you had some great points at the time, so I thought it would be great to bring you on the podcast, talk about your personal experience and your experience at Nilsson Energy. So just to start us off, could you give us a quick introduction to yourself and your role at Nilsson Energy?
Thank you, Karen, and thank you for having me. Yes, my name, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Martina Nilsson, and I'm one of the co-founders of Nilsson Energy. We work as system integrators, utilising mostly green hydrogen for a number of different applications, both stationary and mobile applications. So that's what I do on an everyday 24/7 roster.
That sounds great. So, I mean, obviously we discuss it all the time, but it is very much a male-dominated industry at the moment. Obviously, things have got better. Obviously, the broader energy sector was a bit worse on that front. But what challenges have you faced in your career development as a woman in a male-dominated industry? And what was your main drive or motivator to progress?
Yeah, that's a huge question to start off with. But I suppose I have been more or less brought up in quite male orientated or dominated industries. I started off in the logging industry, which is one, but also I carry some background from the automotive industry.
Of course,
and that's also a very male orientated and technology driven industry. And I suppose I was brought in as a manager in a management trainee program, quite an extensive one as well, which was quite eye-opening for a few members of staff. And I suppose I worked very hard and very diligently. And I suppose my main challenge has been being the odd one out in many different discussions and the way that I would argue and reason might often be, met with a bit of impatience instead of curiosity and supposed to willingness to hear and digest and make educated decisions together. But I suppose we need to work really hard. We all do. But I maybe also I realized that building relationships on many levels has been extremely important.
Yeah.
So you need to find backing on all sorts of different levels regardlessly. And I suppose that one of the those challenges that I was facing also taught me to really listen quite intensely and acutely and diligently as well, to find and solve and suss out the situation. So it's been quite energy intense at times.
So being, I guess, like in industries where it is very like male orientated, like from the get-go, really, did you ever have any role models which were women who you sort of looked up to?
Oh yes, there's been many. I used to work with the Swedish Chamber of Commerce in London where I was very young, and there was a lady managing director, Mrs. Elizabeth Baldwin. She was one of those power ladies whom I can relate to, and as a very early stages in my life. But I'd had to underline as well, and I suppose it's very common to say so, but my mother.
Yeah.
She was a classic hardworking, selflessly devoting herself both to work and to family. She gave birth to 5 children. She had well over 100 staff.
Oh, wow.
She was in a very female-orientated line of work. So I remember myself realizing very early on that she's got lots of work and lots of responsibilities, but very little praise, money, and power. And I remember that as a young girl or lady, I could suss that difference. I mean, she was at home sitting at the kitchen table doing the bookkeeping for 4 different enterprises.
Oh, wow.
And she was in a very sort of a female environment. And I think that actually made me not want to go down that route.
Yeah. So what was it about that that made you, I guess, think maybe I'll go into more of a male orientated environment?
So for me, yeah, I suppose that's the reason why I choose to go down the environmental technology road.
Yeah.
But I have a keen interest in solving problems.
Oh, okay, yeah.
All sorts of different challenges, and you can do that very well in when it comes to technology. That's one of the reasons. Having said that, I'm not actually I'm a master of economics,
Yeah.
with an interest in and a major in psychology as well. So there's always going to be people orientated, but in a different way, I suppose, for me.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's a massive push and from a lot of advocates, such as Women in Green Hydrogen, to have more diversity in leadership positions and across, really. But what do you see as, I guess, the important factor for having to integrate both male and female perspectives when it comes to spearheading developments in hydrogen and achieving our net zero targets?
Yeah, another very good and huge question.
we
need to have a fortnight on this. No, I suppose, Kira, that it's always a strength that companies and management have an equal distribution of genders, because it's not only a good work balance in the workshop, but also it attracts competent labor. And it speaks a lot about who you are and the way that you welcome people and the great condition for solving different challenges. And I tend to, I'm not always, we shouldn't really just talk about women and men. We should talk about what we have between our ears, and how we can solve problems. But having said that, and also really highlight what we just spoke about, there is a difference, and we need to think about how we can create democratic, I suppose, both society and our businesses and our industries need to be incorporated in that. So sure. A voice needs to be a voice, regardless of how that chooses to express itself. So I think again that it comes down to the fact that you tend to want to hire yourself, you want whom you can relate to, and it's always going to be a bit of a grinding between the two surfaces if there is resistance. But to really work with that and actively work with it, I think is so important.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're so right there. I mean, it is just about almost just having a diverse set of brains in a business who are able to, I guess, give different perspectives on things and, I guess, innovate in the way that we need to in this sector.
And I tend to come back to this in lots of reasoning, not least when it comes to hydrogen. We need to stop being short-sighted. And what I mean by that, I mean that if we can bring a long-term perspective into, it may not be my first choice, but it could be the better choice in the longer perspective. We need to allow ourselves, I suppose, to listen to everybody who's willing to contribute. And I think, again, going back to my earlier reasoning, that you need to really ponder and think about me not being so short-sighted that you may win the battle, but you lose the war.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say that, but it takes a very active process, working with it every single day, I suppose. And I think it's important that there are leaders. I think that if I could set an example for anybody, I'd be so happy. But because it's unusual being a lady and being an entrepreneur and being in a power position, I suppose. So that's important. We need to lead by example, but we also need to include each other, depending, regardless of whom we are and where we were born and what gender we happen to be.
Yeah, no, 100% agree with all of that, really.